Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I'm David Liggett, founder of datacenterHawk, and I hope you and your family have a great holiday season. 2019 was a great season for us here at datacenterHawk and a really interesting year in the data center industry. One of my favorite things I get to do during the year is meet with key industry leaders and talk about trends that are changing the market in our content series called Hawk Talks. So if you keep watching this video, what you will see are our top 10 moments from our 2019 Hawk Talk videos. Consider it my holiday gift to you. Once again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you in 2020.
We found that these powered shell sites are not for everyone, but for the operators, the hyperscalers, and even corporations who have very specific requirements, they make a lot of sense. So the turnkey environment on the other side is, it's there immediately.
Yep.
So having product in the market, if you need it, be co-located within a month or two. Having turnkey space is, important.
Yep.
But again, not everybody's looking for that space,
Sure.
and we think it serves a portion of the marketplace having this infrastructure and the powered shell in place prior to the tenants entering.
Creating discipline in the market in the next 3 to 5 years, I think is going to be extremely beneficial for this market. The amount of different investors that come in, and all of this is sort of counterintuitive. If you see more people come into the market, you're like, uh-oh, more product, lower rates, not so great for the landlord. I really do think that there needs to be more competition in the market. I think that helps separate different types of products within the market. Because there is not one product that just fits the cloud market. There absolutely is not. But everyone has their different strengths and everyone has their different weaknesses. And I think that becomes more apparent as we move in the future.
Yeah.
I think the standard answer is everyone will say 5G, Edge, and you see a little of that happening. And people buying stuff in Kansas City, Ohio, I mean, places I would never even guess that people would build into. But the strengths that I see in the market for the next 3 to 5 years is I think we're better understanding of what the data center market is today than we ever have been before. Sure.
When we talk about scale, in my perspective, you've got kind of real scale at like the 20, 30, 40 megawatt scale. And there's really only 4 buyers in that market, 4 or 5, give or take. I think we all know who they are, and they buy in that kind of scale.
Right.
But that decision point is one of should they build their own building or go to an operator like a QTS or another competitor. And that's a really interesting dialogue about scale.
Yep.
The other part of the hyperscale market is 2 megawatts, 3 megawatts, every 6, 8 months, 12 months. And it's scale over time. And so if you manage that customer, you're going to end up with a 15, 16 megawatt customer.
Sure.
But it kind of is like boiling water. It happened 1 megawatt at a time.
Yes.
And so scale is interesting in the perspective that there's really 2 flavors in the market, and it's hard to be all things to everybody.
Yep.
But if you have a good, nimble delivery system, you can actually do both.
Why do data center users today find this market attractive? We've seen significant growth, so what's driving that?
4 main reasons. The first one is the cost of the power.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that data center operator consume a lot of power.
Yeah.
So getting access to those low rates makes a lot of difference in your operation cost. First one. The second one is the green power that Hydro-Québec can provide.
Okay, talk about that, yeah.
So green energy, it's very popular, and hyperscaler want to act as good citizen, and this is part of their RFP. They want to make sure that the power is green. So this is why it's so attractive here. 99.5% of Hydro-Québec's power is green.
Interesting.
Makes a difference at the end. The third one is the climate. As you can see today, it's quite cold. So to cool down our data module, it's a lot more efficient and costs almost nothing. We can use cold outside air to cool down our data modules.
Yeah.
And the last one is the network. The network, we have fiber paths coming from the East Coast NAPs, network access point, direct route, low latency. Makes a difference because if you have servers in one data center, you need connectivity. You need to be connected to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So latency, it's quite important.
Yeah.
And the technology, it's bringing very good latency those days.
like most urban areas, has probably changed over time.
Yes.
I mean, we're lucky we've got a very diverse corporate group here in Seattle, right? Super strong in tech. I mean, that's what's obvious with Amazon and Microsoft, and F5 and the rest of those folks, but really strong on the healthcare side of things and biotech and that. And so Sabey, for a long time on this campus, have been very successful with the enterprise. Frankly, we take a lot of pride in working with Northwest companies. We started here in 1970. We've been here a long time. We got a relationship with a lot of different companies, and so that was always a keen focus. And then it's certainly changed over time. We're now, I think what's most interesting, and as you see, more proximity-based applications, right? Applications that are benefiting, consumer experiences that benefit by having the gear closer to customers. We're seeing those companies come because we're really, thankfully, we've had this property a long time, right? But we're only a few miles out of downtown, and we're one of the only real wholesale providers where you can put a megawatt worth of stuff close to the city, reaching Seattle and the Bellevue environment. So you're seeing more of that. We've seen probably, 3 or 4 deals like that in the last year or so, where they wanted to put down their applications close to the urban core, and you have great connectivity up to the telco hotel in town. And so it's changing all the time what the demand is.
What the edge is.
Just a question we should all
it's like
laugh about.
What, like religion, politics, and the edge. Let's not talk about those 3 things. No, I mean, I like to keep things pretty simple.
Let's go.
So on the simplest level, distributing infrastructure is not a new trend, right? When I started my career, advanced organizations would take a footprint domestically, so to say, in Ashburn, Virginia, and maybe West Coast like Los Angeles, and maybe Chicago, right? And that was effectively the coverage you needed for those applications. Over time, we've seen, a boom of secondary markets or other NFL cities that perhaps aren't, specifically acquiring subsea cables, but you look at your Atlantas and everything else, they've just boomed, right?
Sure.
That was the march towards the edge, right? And that same trend is continuing, right? And so what was secondary markets, we're now looking at tier 3 markets.
Yes.
We're looking at, big metropolises like Dallas, for example. If all your data centers are located in the center of Dallas or in the outskirts, it doesn't do good for the majority of your actual eyeballs in residential or in customers, right?
Yes.
And so that's effectively, it's just an extension of that same trend, right? As bandwidth demands go up, as application performance becomes more critical, you're going to want to locate the capacity closer and closer to the user.
Data centers at the heart are real estate.
Sure.
And when you talk about real estate, you're talking about, generally people tell you, hey, physical real estate, location, location, location. In the data center world, that's true as well. But it's not just physical location, it's logical location. That is, where do you live on the internet? And when we talk about 5G and changing network topologies and software-defined networking and hyperscale network overbuild, we've got a lot going on from a network topology perspective. And then, as we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, the way that services are delivered and consumed, all of that means that those important logical locations are changing. And what we're playing for here at CyrusOne is to make those important logical locations of the future live inside our data centers.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so Chris, when we talked last time, one of my best memories from our discussion was when we talked about your rugby prowess. And so I'm excited because you brought something to somewhat show that prowess today. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it prowess, but when have you seen a rugby ball inside of a data center?
We're setting records here.
I'd be breaking rules if I could, if I kicked it back there. But no, it's rugby has kind of been a passion of mine for some time, and I go so far as to infuse it in our sales kickoff.
And
very
really, fun.
What do we need to do as a team to really make a difference going forward. And rugby, in a lot of ways, I think as we talked about last time, it's a kind of a thinking man or woman sport, and that it's pretty strategic as it relates to when you pass it, how you pass it, because you got to pass backwards to move forwards, which is pretty strange in a given sport. But anyway, it was great that the sales team gave me the Flexential rugby balls.
Come on, man.
With sales signs, so pretty stoked about that, and pretty stoked about the future.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
That network effect of everybody coming to Ashburn, Virginia, the network that's already in the ground in Ashburn, Virginia, creates a dynamic where people still have to be here in one form or fashion, or really want to be here for some type of load. So it was something that I wanted to do as soon as I came on to land in Northern Virginia.
Yeah,
it's obviously the statistics on Northern Virginia, everybody has them and knows them. It's the fastest growing. Last year, dwarfed other markets.
Yeah.
And that continues to grow at a pretty good clip.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the conversation I had with my mom, because I was very worried about this topic. I was at James Madison.
Okay,
I
sure.
think I was maybe a junior, starting to think about having a profession, and I said, Mom, how will I ever be as successful as Dad? To me, he was the most successful person.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like him, and I didn't know how I could ever accomplish that. And she looked at me and she said, your dad is not, he's not the smartest guy in the room. He's not going to be this guy, or this guy. There's one thing he is, though. He's the person that everybody wants to work for. And she said, if you're the person who people want to work for, if you recognize that being that is the most important thing, you'll make it.